and just make this statement quickly. Right? Based on actual, that's what that video was while we was talking about these things. While we know the recently Iron Age E1B1A that went down into Africa about the Iron Age. We know that traces of the inhabitants of Africa, however, can be observed today in these regions by the Y DNA haplogroups of A1A, A1B, A2, and A3, and BM60. So we know A and B groups are originally African groups before the E groups got there, right? Before they start replacing them. That's important to know about. That based on fossils, right? We can try our best and match things and look at fossils and everything. But we got to note that E1B1P2 makes E1B1A. And E1B1A, the oldest P2, surpasses any fossil of E1B1A. That means that E1B1A was inside P2 in the Natufian before it left out and went to France, right? And then it went to Peru. Then it came back to the BMAC culture, and then it went to Africa. And what I was just talking about right there, that was from its Neolithic to Bronze Age movements. That's its Neolithic to Bronze Age movements. And Paleolithic, it would be in the Tufian, Paleolithic and Mesolithic, because every fossil has a said Mesolithic and Paleolithic time frame. Every fossil, almost every haplogroup has a Mesolithic and Paleolithic time frame. Besides certain groups that come from their father group, like T and E1B1A and some other groups, right? But mainly those ones, T and E1B1A. Those pop up in about the Neolithic time. E1B1A and T pops up in the Neolithic time frame as important. But T comes from F-M89, from a major understanding of mutations. But E1B1A comes from DE. That's important, which DE is actually in the areas of Syria and Asia, besides Natufians. But that's why we're concluding this. There are no Paleolithic, Mesolithic, or Neolithic fossils of E1B1A. Right? So, and that can never be demonstrated by actual fossils. It can only be generated in hypothetics. It can never be generated in actual confirmed fossil find. So that's why we was going over that information in that last video. I just want to quickly summarize that as we wrap these things up. So let me just close that. I got something set for this Sunday. Hopefully we can go over something that's interesting, I think. But it's going to be on the whole origin of people and how the world changed and whatnot, and how fast it might happen. It might change views. That's important to name from. Let me see. All right. So that's, I just wanted to go over that, when you're looking at fossils and are displaying fossils and information on fossils and everything, right? We got to note something. What time frames are they said found in, right? And if we can believe it, right? If we can believe it. So we don't have any E1B throughout all this time until none of these time frames until about the transition of the Iron Age. That's when we get them. So we don't have any. There's no E1B1A culture past 5,000 years, even though that's even a lot in itself, right? There's no E1B1A found in Africa at that age. That's the thing, is that it cannot be provided by actual fossil culture. By actual fossil culture, there is no E1B1A in the Paleolithic or the Mesolithic or the Neolithic time frame, and even in the Bronze Age. The only thing close that they can possibly use is Isham. And if you've already seen, that's why I'm going to put a video in the description of the other video and this one, that we already went over Isham, and that we confirmed with a geneticist that is not actually African. They said it, the geneticist said it himself, that Isham is not actually African, from a geneticist, word for word. He said, you're right, is not actually African. So very important, because it pops up about this time frame. And from the transition of the Mesolithic and Paleolithic Natufians, right? From this time frame here, the Mesolithic and Paleolithic Natufians show me an E1B1A that ever existed. Besides that one that in the Natufian, the P2 E1B1A or E1B1 rather, that makes E1B1A and E1B1B, found in the Paleolithic and Mesolithic transition after the major events after the Younger Dryas. That's why it says the end of the last glacial area, right? If we can understand that there is no E1B1A in that time, and nor Neolithic in Africa, but there is E1B1As that exist Neolithic, but they're not in Africa. They're not in Africa. E1B1As, I could do a flash show of quick sources of E1B1A. Neolithic time frames, not in Africa. They're not in Africa. They're in Peru. They're in France, in the lands of France, which is even on this paper right here. I'll quickly show the one in France. Show it real fast. We actually have it open on this one, I believe. Let me just go to it. Right here, it puts it as a snip, the snip on there. I'm gonna go to it real fast and just point out how we have. There's your earliest E1, your earliest E groups, right? Your E dash M96, right? So that's very important. Early split groups, right? But we got one in the earliest one is actually in, I don't know why they don't have it here, the pre-pottery Neolithic B. The oldest E-M2 is in the pre-pottery Neolithic B, right here in this culture, in the pre-pottery Neolithic culture. And see the fossil culture. So you can see that time frame, obviously surpassing that. And you can see, if you look at the fossils, you got exactly E-M96. That's what that is. E-M96. So that's your split from where? From areas of the Levant after your Natufian time frame. But okay, so got a good understanding of that. I'm gonna go to that E1B1A on here. Just make sure I didn't go past it. Probably did real fast. All right, so here it comes right here. You can see it right here. This is actually E1B1A. This little snip right here. Let me just put it down. This is E1B1A M2. So you can see right there M2. You can see the branches. You can see the branches here. So major branches it has and everything. Obviously has some branches, but obviously goes all the way back to M2 and V38 from your P2. So you can see your connection, your roots from your P2. Your P2 is E1B1, and obviously you have that mid branch of a little earlier of E1B. So E1B going to E1B1 goes either to E1B1B or E1B1C or E1B1A. All right. That is going to be your M2. Right. That's the one that said Bantu. But notice that before it's a Bantu is in France. It's in areas of France. You can see over here Neolithic. That's Neolithic. So that's important. France, Neolithic time frame. And then after France, it goes to Peru. Right? That's Bronze Age until it turns to Iron Age. And apparently Peru is in the lands of Brazil, which apparently means land of iron. Right? I'm gonna actually show something a little later with an interesting thing a brother put out. I thought it was really interesting that find that E1B1A goes to the land of iron and then comes back as Iron Age Bantus. Think about that, right? That's actually his real origins. That's the real origins, right? It's a little more complex than that, but that's just a summary of its origins, where it comes from before it becomes a said Bantu. So it leaves this area, goes to France through the Cordran pottery, how you say it, Cordran pottery movements that it makes, and it goes all the way to France, and then it goes to Peru. That's the real origins of the fossils of E1B1A. That's the real origins. That this M2 that's actually in the SNPs origin in Saudi Arabia, as you can see right there, you can see it. Its origins based on SNPs is in Saudi Arabia. So you can see from the early SNP. I'll go over a little bit just to show that it's coming from the earliest one. You can see right here. This is your E-M2. And what's the earliest said SNP from it? Right here. Right there. You can see that one's going to be in Saudi Arabia. So actually it's Arabian. That makes the whole P2 Arabian. That makes the whole branch Arabian. So P2 is actually Arabian, as you can see. P2 obviously makes the Natufian group, and then you get your split to your V38, and then you get a split to your M2s. And that's talking SNPs. The one that's found with the oldest SNPs are obviously outside of Africa. The ones that's found is outside of Africa, going into more places of Arabia until they go later into Africa, right? But this is modern people, right? But that's taking the mutation rate, the SNPs, right? The SNPs are going to give a good picture of these things, right? Even is early other lineages show early movements into those areas, right? That's going to be your said E1B1C. They have some lineages in Saudi Arabia. I believe that's the twin and everything. I was in Ethiopia, Saudi Arabia. We talked about that. Abyssinia, that has connections to these lineages. But obviously, it's twin splits to M2. And that's the one that's actually Arabian, right? Based on SNPs. But based on fossils, it also has evidence of being in France, right? Based on fossils. Right? So based on fossils, this lineage has evidence of being in France. This E1B1A lineage. And that's Neolithic time frame. There's no earlier E1B1A than that. Remember, there's no Paleolithic, nor Mesolithic, or Neolithic African E1B1As that's found. This is also going to change the understanding of how the out of Africa concept is viewed, because some people make a out of Africa concept based on ideas, but not actual facts. So they'll say, oh, they must have started over here, but we found out that it started over here. You see what's going on there? And then they got their CT. They always put your CF outside of Africa, but notice that what they put inside Africa, based on what? Based on nothing, right? Truly. You can see your E. So they say your E comes there. Say is that age, but again, this is taking SNPs, and it's the early not even in Africa. The earliest SNPs are not found in Africa. That's important, but they're found outside Africa, and the fossils are not found in Africa. So I just wanted to show, because this is your classic. This is your classic design, and it's always based on SNPs and not based on fossils. Based on modern people and where modern people are located. We could show that with no doubt, because the way that they design these maps is based on modern people. That's how they design these maps. Is that these are modern people, not ancient people, right? And we talked about the events of the Younger Dryas and what, and the wiping out of many different people. So very, very important stuff. They'll obviously, we know that an R goes into Africa. They'll let you know a R that goes into Africa, but it's not African, right? Because it goes into Africa very early. But you can see obviously with the E groups, that's the one that they always want to make African. Why? Because they want to. That's the reason. They don't actually have fossils to make it African. They just want to make it African. And someone can tell me if I'm lying by showing me a source of a Paleolithic or a Mesolithic or a Neolithic E1B1A. That's what I want to see. I want to see a provided actual academic paper, right? an actual scientific paper that actually shows E1B1A in Africa at these time frames. It should be easy. Anyone can provide it. I want brothers who knows the truth, even to tell people that statement, to bring out a fossilized paper or paper with a fossilized E1B1A. That's in Paleolithic, Mesolithic, and Neolithic, or any of them in Africa. Not it's supposed or it's probably, but this is what they found and this is what it's dated to. There's none because they were in the Natufian culture. That's where they came from before they became the pre-pottery Neolithic B, and before they went into France, and before they went to Peru, and before they went to the BMAC culture over here. Then they went into Africa later in the Iron Age with iron tools after they left Peru and other places. So that's something to consider and think about. That when we're talking fossils, that's what we see. We see something that when you take that out of concept, it destroys it, right? It literally destroys the out of Africa concept because one, like I said on the other illustration, if you look at the evidence of the A groups and B groups, right, and where they came from outside of Africa going in, even from the Y chromosome atom that we found. That one started outside of Africa and has a mix of Neanderthal and Denisovans. And it went into the area of Africa. We found them outside of Africa from those four origins that we were talking about. Going into the areas of Africa. So they're outside going into Africa. Those are fossils. And taking E1B1A as a whole by its fossils, we can see ourselves without a doubt that the only fossils they have that they'll use is the Bantu fossils in the Iron Age, which is about, we went over it, no more, and this is even giving it a stretch, than 1000 BC. No more than 1000 BC. That's important. And that's even stretching it because actually it comes more closer to AD time frame because you can look it up. When did Africa have its Iron Age? Right? When was Africa's Iron Age? Right? That's when they say the Iron Age in Africa was. So if the Bantu had iron weapons, think about that. If the Bantu had iron weapons and the Iron Age was only 2000 BC, said 2000 BC, then there's something fishy going on. There's something really fishy going on with the Iron Age Bantu, right? Because you can look it up, the Bantu, and they'll tell you that it's Iron Age. We looked at the fossils, that the Bantu are always with iron technology. That's why it says the Bantu group of Africa had iron technology. The Bantu group of Africa had iron technology. And when was the Iron Age in Africa? Just think about that. Just consider that when I'm pointing these things out, that there's something fishy going on with these haplogroups based on the fossils. And that's why we're doing this, to bring the clarity of it, right? Show somebody, tell somebody, and tell them, can they provide an E1B1A older than this, or even close to this, or even this in Africa? Can they show a E1B1A past 5,000 years in Africa? Right? This is 5,000 years before present. Right? That's said 5,000 years before present for a E1B1A. Right? So what they got to do, again, what they have to do is show E1B1A in Africa about this time frame. 5,000 years before present to make E1B1A African. Otherwise, E1B1A is not African. That means that a lot of lineages that are put in Africa are put there because they want to put them there, not because it's actual fossils that prove it. There are no fossils that prove it. Actually, they proved the opposite. They proved that there was a lineage in Africa that was replaced by a lineage that moved into Africa. That's super important. And even the original lineage in Africa was actually one that went into Africa very early on. because we know that this lineage and this lineage, we know that these lineages were outside of Africa. So if the Homo sapiens supposedly only existed at this time, then you know what we have? We have a option of any location that these humans could have evolved from, not just in Africa, not just in Africa. If they're taking that scale out of Africa scale and the evolution scale, that it would have given the ability for them to evolve anywhere or come to existence anywhere, not just in Africa, because the places where these go. So very, very important with those things. Very, very important. Close this. Right. So very, 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 very important. So just with that summary, that's what I want. That's what it is about today. Today, it was just about a statement that I wanted to make. I wanted to make this live. I wanted to make it not too long. I wanted to at least give some food for thought. That this statement that there are no Mesolithic or Paleolithic or Neolithic, not even a Bronze Age E1 official E1B1A M2 that's found in the areas of Africa, besides the ones that are found in the Iron Age. Because remember, the Bantu people of Africa had iron technology, and the Iron Age of Africa was not as old as the Iron Age in Europe or in certain areas, because Iron Age differs for location. But that's something to understand as we talk about these things. That's important to understand. So, with that, that's all I got for today. That when you look at the full picture, it's more deeper than it looks. But I got something coming this Sunday. We'll go over deeper. These are just little summaries that I just want to get out and say. And I want everyone to have that ability to notice. I want them to know from every corner that they're trying to make a lineage that's not African, but it's not African based on the fossils. So think about that next time when you hear somebody try to say it's a group is Bantu or African and stuff. It gets a little more deeper than that. You can even see when was the Bronze Age in Africa. They'll talk about different things like that. But with that, family, that's all I got for today. It's just a little simple thing. There's just a message to kind of get that out, that there is no E1B1As, Mesolithic, or rather Paleolithic, Mesolithic, and Neolithic time frame. There's none. So tell somebody if they do believe that, to provide a source for a fossil of E1B1A in Africa and to show how it is African. There's none. So just remember that as we go over that. All right, so that's all I got for today, family. With that, be blessed, be beloved, and amen.